But we are talking about influence, and I'm going to jump right into the text. So I'm going to be reading from the text and then sharing my thoughts on it. And once again, if you're new, if this is your first time, this text, this book, Christ Object Lessons, was written back in the early 1900s. So it's old English, but there's a lot of wisdom in this, and I think a lot of it is applicable to our lives nowadays. So it's reflecting mostly on the parable that Jesus told about the talents in Matthew 25, and how the Holy Spirit, God gives us, right, abilities, and then how we use them. And this is one of them, influence. So the idea is that our influence is something that God gives us, right? We exist, we exert influence over others. We should have a responsibility. We should take responsibility for how we interact with others. And that's what this chapter is in a nutshell. So we're going to dive right in and get into the details. And thank you for joining me. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, to share. And if you're in the Wisdom app, follow me for more like this, and also look at my blog for notes. And I love your interaction. So last time I did this video, I think it was earlier this week, and I got positive feedback. And then I found some time today in between things. I think I have enough time to do this, so I'm doing another one. So thank you for the feedback. Here we go, jumping right into the text. It says, the life of Christ was an ever-widening, shoreless influence, an influence that bound him to God and to the whole human family. Through Christ, God has invested men and women, right, humans in general. So in this book usually refers to men. It says men actually, but it refers to everybody. God has invested humanity with an influence that makes it impossible for anyone to live to himself or to herself, right? You can't live just to yourself. Your life will impact other lives. You have influence over other people. That's the main thrust of this. So here's a sentence that I highlighted. It says, individually, we are connected with our fellow men and women. A part of God's great whole, we stand under mutual obligations. We have obligations to one another. We stand under mutual obligations. That means you don't get to just live for yourself. You don't get to ignore everybody else and just do what you want and do what you like. You can do those things. Just keep in mind that as you do them, you're influencing people around you, right? So there is that responsibility on all of us. No man or woman can be independent of his fellow men. For the well-being of each affects others. My well-being affects your well-being. Your well-being affects my well-being. And the healthier that all of us are, the better it is all around. So, that's the power of community. I'm going to keep going here. Next sentence, it says, it is God's purpose that each shall feel himself or herself necessary to others' welfare, to seek to promote their happiness. So I should feel that it's necessary, that I am necessary, for the well-being of my children, of my wife, of my co-workers, of people that attend, congregate here at my church here at Cloverdale Seventh-day Adventist Church, right? I feel this responsibility to seek and to promote the well-being of those around me. Now, this doesn't mean I do everything people want me to do, but the things that I do, am I doing them in such a way that I'm promoting the well-being of those around me? Is this something that I'm being intentional about, sort of being outward focused as opposed to just focusing on myself and what I want as if it didn't matter to anybody else? So it's just things to think about. We can agree, disagree. I'd love to have a conversation on this. I'm sharing with you my thoughts as I read the text. The next paragraph here says, every soul is surrounded by an atmosphere of its own. I love this, right? So imagine as you walk around, there's this atmosphere around you. And this happens to every single person on the planet, right? We have this atmosphere. And well, let's read a little bit more, and then I'll talk some more. I studied this a little bit earlier. I don't want to get ahead of myself. An atmosphere, it may be charged with the life-giving power of faith, courage, and hope, and the sweet fragrance of love. So that's an option, right? Your atmosphere can be charged with the life-giving power of faith, courage, and hope, with the sweet fragrance of love. You could be that person walking around with this atmosphere around you, just influencing people around you with faith, hope, love, courage. This is great. Or It may be heavy and chill with the gloom of discontent and selfishness, or poisonous with the deadly taint of cherished sin. So if you're not a Christian and you don't read the Bible, you're not familiar with this word sin, um, you can go quite in depth in this, but in a nutshell, I would say that sin is anything that pulls you away from God, anything that goes against God's will for your life. So the selfishness, the self-centeredness, here the author describes this as a poisonous and deadly taint, right, of this cherished sin. So just to clarify here, the word cherished sin, this means that this is a sin that you are aware of and you like it and you're going to keep doing it. This is different from you struggling with some character trait or just a weakness that you have, or some, there's other things that we struggle with. So this is not talking about the things that you struggled with. This is talking about a cherished sin. You know it's wrong. You know you have it, but you kind of like it. Here is described as a poisonous and deadly influence. Also, there is the gloom and chill of discontent, of selfishness. That person that lives all to herself, all to himself, that's not someone you enjoy being around. In essence, don't be that person. I'm continuing here in that same paragraph. By the atmosphere surrounding us, every person with whom we come into contact is consciously or unconsciously affected. And I love this idea that we can be unconsciously affected by the atmosphere of people around us, and also our atmosphere, right? This energy that you give out impacts other people, even unconsciously, even if they can't put a finger on it or say exactly what it was that you did. There's just something about being around you, something that's just coming off of you that, I know this sounds kind of weird, right? Like new age vibe type of thing. Some of you may not be into that, but I think the author here is onto something. Being around people affects how you feel and your mood and these different things. And so if we can be intentional and aware of that, we can be much more of a positive influence on those around us. So I'm continuing here now, going on to the next paragraph. It says, this is a responsibility from which we cannot free ourselves. Our words, our acts, our dress, our deportment, even the expression of the countenance has an influence. Upon the impressions thus made, there hangs the result for good or evil, which no man or woman, no human being can measure. So, our deportment, our dress, our acts, our words, our expressions, our countenance, all of this is an influence. And we don't know what the ultimate outcome will be, right? We have the influence over someone today, and we don't know when they go home, when they go out for lunch, when they go to school, when they go, what impact is it going to have in their lives? We can't tell. It's kind of like that butterfly effect. So it's the way that I take this. It's always good to try to exert the most positive, hopeful, loving influence possible, because you could just shape someone's life for the better, right? That the rest of their day, the impact they will have on their children or on their loved ones or on their co-workers, because you were that positive influence. I love this idea that your good actions, your choice of loving and kind words. I had a video in that my previous video, if you check, not on YouTube but on Facebook, and also on the podcast, right? The one before this one was about the power of your words. And so this one is about your influence, and it kind of goes hand in hand, right? As you choose your words carefully, as you choose your influence, how you're going to interact with people, it's going to have this impact in their lives that you can't measure, right? It's, once again, that butterfly effect. You don't know how this is going to impact the lives of those around you, but it is going to have an impact. Going back to quoting here, every impulse thus imparted is seed sown, which will produce its harvest. Right? So you're sowing seeds by your actions, by your countenance, by the way you dress, by the words you use, by the smile on your face or the frown on your eyes. Eyes, I guess, forehead. So all of this is like sowing seeds, and there will be a harvest. There will be, it will bear fruit. It will have an impact. So it is, back to quoting, it is a link in the long chain of human events, extending we know not whither. I gotta love this old English. If by our example we aid others in the development of good principles, we give them power to do good. Think about that. By our example, we aid others in the development of good principles, right? If we are choosing to be honest, to be hardworking, to be kind, to be forgiving, we are giving them power to do good. We are encouraging them to do likewise. We are showing them that you don't have to be mean and selfish and self-centered and just kind of having a bad day. You could be a positive influence, you could be a force for good, and also encouraging others to do likewise. So in their turn, they exert the same influence upon others, and they still upon others. Thus, by our unconscious influence, thousands may be blessed. By you just choosing to be that positive person, thousands can be blessed. Because once again, you don't know where that influence ends. You don't know what is going to happen. You don't know how it's going to impact that life. So when you choose to be kind, when you choose to volunteer and just serve, receiving nothing tangible in return, nothing visible, right? There's no money exchange. There's no, you do this for me and I'll give you this gift. No, you're just being kind. You don't know, thousands could be blessed by just your positive, helpful attitude today. So I'm going here to the next paragraph. It says, throw a pebble into the lake, and the wave is formed, and another, and another. And as they increase, the circle widens until it reaches the very shore. So, with our influence, beyond our knowledge or control, it tells upon others in blessings or in curses. So, your life will influence others either in a blessing or in a curse. It's your choice, right? As you choose to live your day today, as you choose to treat people today, if you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, if you're going to be forgiving, if you're going to be loving, if you're going to choose to smile even though you're having a bad day, that will bless somebody else. Or you can be that negative person and be a curse in the lives of those around you. It's a choice that we make. There are things that are beyond our control, but I think that there's also lots of things that are under our control, especially how we treat others. So I'm going to the next paragraph here now. It says, character is power. The silent witness of a true, unselfish, godly life carries an almost irresistible influence. By revealing in our own life the character of Christ, we cooperate with Him in the work of saving souls. It is only by revealing in our life His character that we can cooperate with Him. And the wider the sphere of our influence, the more good we may do. I love this, right? This idea is that for those of you who believe in the Bible, I happen to be in that group. I believe in Jesus, and this means that as I share in His character, as I want to live like He did, He joins me. He cooperates with me. He gives me that power, that ability to live life like He did here on earth and to be a blessing for others. So by revealing in our own life the character of Christ, we cooperate with Him in the work of saving souls. So we join Jesus in the effort of blessing people here on this planet, of saving them for eternity. And if you'd like to learn more about that, reach out to me. I can share more. But I'm just going to say that, it begins with just this influence of who you are and how you live your life, not just by preaching, not just by telling people, but just by the way you interact, by the way that you choose to live. So, next sentence here, and I have this one highlighted. It says, when those who profess to serve God follow Christ's example, practicing the principles of the law in their daily life, when every act bears witness that they love God supremely and their neighbor as themselves, then will the church have power to move the world. And I love this because sometimes myself as a spiritual religious leader, you could say, I am the pastor of a church, and sometimes I can feel like, are we even making a difference? What we're doing. And I love this because it says when we are practicing the principles in our daily life, right? When we every act bears the witness that we love God supremely and our neighbors as ourselves, right? This is sort I talked about this actually at church a few weeks back. If you look through our live streams, you can listen to that whole message. It's also available on my blog. Love Your Neighbors is the title of that one. So the idea is that this is when you have the power to move the world. It's not political power, it's not by force, it's not by coercion, it's not by fear. It's by showing love and reflecting the character of God. That's how the church, that's how God's people, God's family have the power to move the world. It's by a positive, loving influence, reflecting the character of Christ. This is where it all begins. This is where the power comes from. So, next paragraph here, but never should it be forgotten that influence is no less a power for evil. Now, listen to this, right? We've been talking about the positive, but there's also the negative side. You can also be a power for evil. To lose one's own soul is a terrible thing, but to cause the loss of another soul is still more terrible. That our influence should be a savor of death unto death is a fearful thought. Yes, yet this is possible. Many who profess together with Christ are scattering from him. This is why the church is so weak. Many indulge freely in criticism and accusing. By giving expression to suspicion, jealousy, and discontent, they yield themselves as instruments of Satan. So, this is important to highlight. When you feel like your job as a Christian, as a follower of God, and you just consider yourself holier than others, and you love to criticize others, and then you come into the church and you have that same spirit of criticizing people who are upfront, criticizing people in the greeting, the greeters, and criticizing the leaders in the children's division, and criticizing this and the other and the other. According to the author here, and I think this is an interesting point, you're yielding yourself as an instrument of Satan. You're not building up, you're tearing down. This is not the word of God, the work of God. Continuing here, before they realize what they are doing, the adversary has through them accomplished his purpose. The impression of evil has been made, the shadow has been cast, the arrows of Satan found their mark. It would be good, right, to avoid criticizing. It's in the hands of God, right? So you have a choice. We have a choice. I have a choice each day how I interact with others, which spirit am I leaning into and inviting into my life, and then reflecting into the lives of those around me. So I'm going to continue here in that same paragraph. Next sentence: distrust, unbelief, and downright infidelity have fastened upon those who otherwise might have accepted Christ. Meanwhile, the workers for Satan look complacently upon those whom they have driven to skepticism, and who are now hardened against reproof and entreaty. They flatter themselves that in comparison with these souls, they are virtuous and righteous. They do not realize that these said wrecks of character are the work of their own unbridled tongues and rebellious hearts. It is through their influence that these tempted ones have fallen. So it could be that people who think of themselves as followers of God are actually instruments in in the hands of the enemy, pushing people away from God, beating down people who are already struggling with sin, with life, with pain and suffering. And then they come from this, position feeling, high and mighty and holier. And then they beat down those people, and it's like, those people don't have God in their lives. Well, yeah. And you push them away further. Like, you contributed to their suffering. You contributed to their state of despair, away from God. And it's just like, don't be that person. It doesn't help. You're hurting the cause. You're making the world a worse place, not a better place. Something for us to consider, to think about. May I never be that person or behave in that way, thinking that I'm doing the work of God, when really I'm doing the opposite. So, next paragraph here. So, frivolity, selfish indulgence, and careless indifference in the part of professed Christians. So, this is talking about Christians, right? People who identify with God. And let me read that again. So, frivolity, selfish indulgence, and careless indifference in the part of professed Christians are turning away many souls from the path of life. Right? It's not the theology, it's not that it's hard to believe in God, it's rather the interactions with bad Christians that turn people away from the path of life. Many there are who will fear to meet at the bar of God the results of their influence. So, this is a reference to judgment. And it's saying essentially like it's not gonna be a happy day because of your influence for evil, right? So it's something to keep in mind. Last paragraph of this portion that I set aside for today. Um, it is only through the grace of God that we can make a right use of this endowment, right? So, talking about our influence, we can only do it right through the grace of our God. So, God gives us this ability, and by his grace, he enables us to make proper use of our influence. It's so powerful. It's such a big thing, and we can only do it right if we have God's grace. There is nothing, I'm going back to quoting now, there is nothing in us of ourselves by which we can influence others for good. I like this because that, especially that part that we just went over about being a bad influence, that scares me. I don't want to be that person, and it makes me very self-critical of how I'm living my life. And I love this, that there's nothing in us of ourselves by which we can influence others for good. So we can't do it on our own. I can't do it by myself. You can't do it either. So it's perfectly fine for you to feel inadequate and feel like this burden is too big for you. It's not meant for you to bear it. Let me continue reading. If we realize our helplessness, which is great, like that's already a step in the right direction. Realizing I need help. I can't do this on my own. I'm not good enough. I'm not always positive. I struggle. What am I gonna do? So if we realize our helplessness and our need of divine power, we shall not trust ourselves. We know not what results a day, an hour, or a moment may determine. And never should we begin the day without committing our ways to our Heavenly Father. I start my days with prayer, right? And you should too. It's this thing that when I wake up, Lord, help me be an influence for good today. Give me the ability, the patience, the love, the kindness, Lord, to influence others for good. People are hurting. I want to be an influence for good, and God will answer that prayer. He will help you with that. He will give you the love and the kindness and the wisdom that you need to be that blessing in the lives of others. But it begins with us recognizing we can't do it on our own. It begins with us recognizing we are not good enough. It begins with us recognizing we don't know enough, we're not strong enough, we're not kind enough, we're not loving, we're not even close. So when we cling to God and ask Him, he steps in and he blesses because he wants us to be a blessing. He wants to use us to bless others. And God loves to use his children to bring about blessings in the lives of others. So, almost done here. His angels are appointed to watch over us. And if we put ourselves under their guardianship, then in every time of danger, they will be at our right hand. When unconsciously we are in danger of exerting a wrong influence, the angels will be by our side, prompting us to a better course, choosing our words for us, and influencing our actions. God partners with us. He sends angels to be with us and to help us be an influence for good. When we're tempted, when we're struggling, when it's like, oh, when I'm about to say something that I later have to apologize, that I'll regret later, the angel comes in and just nudges us and helps us in the right way. God is with us in this. We are not on our own. Thus, our influence may be a silent, unconscious, but mighty power in drawing others to Christ and the heavenly world. I'm going to read that again because I think it doesn't matter where you are in your spiritual journey, even if you're not really completely 100% sure that you believe in the Bible and in Jesus and in God, but you're exploring, you're open to the possibility. Let me read this to you again. So when you start praying, and you can pray even if you don't believe in God 100%, maybe you're not sure, but you can still talk to Him. Give it a try. Say, hey, today I want to be a force for good. Help me to be a positive influence. Because when you do this, right, I'm going to read this last sentence again. Thus, our influence may be silent, unconscious, right? You're not always conscious of everything that you do. So even unconscious and silent, but a mighty power in drawing others to Christ and the heavenly world. You can still be a silent, powerful, even if unconscious influence on others for the heavenly world. That thing that you're seeking, that hole that's in your soul, I believe that is God calling you to Himself. He's the only one that can fill that. And when you join Him in that, He uses you now to reach others who are also hurting. So I hope that this was encouraging to you. I hope this was sobering, as it was for me, but also very encouraging. And leave me some feedback once again, because I do like to read and to interact with you, and to continue to go further. If you want more information on this, once again, Pr.Marlon, Pr.Marlon.com. That's my blog. I have notes on there.